Alrighty then, we'll get back into it. Alright, so basically the way I would run with this environment is have our virtual machine sitting here and have our activity document sitting there. Now, I will give you access to these. They're pretty much what you'll find in Server World anyway, but I've added a few, changed the name here, that sort of thing to it, just to give it some structure. Download Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. So how to, install the updates and things like that. So that's the only difference. The actual step-by-step instructions are straight from Server World. Okay, and I basically acknowledge that by saying that the external tutorials are from Server World, and so you can open up Server World directly, work from that. Now, as this new course has not been completed, we will need to finish the assessment tasks that are currently in My Learning. And the first assessment is a written one. And there's basically 5 two-part questions. One of the activities, you'll need to fire up Packet Tracer. So after we go through these activities here, we'll look at that assessment and go through the requirements there. Just give you a Packet Tracer refresher course and things like that. Alright, so this is activity number 2. And basically here we will change our user account from our default, set the server's IP address, change how updates occur, set an exemption to the firewall rule so that the ping, we can ping the server to confirm that connectivity has occurred. And the first thing we're going to do is change the region of our server, because it's definitely not the 13th at 5:12 p.m. Alright, so just like with anyone, the quickest and easiest. Whoa! And alright, so as you can see here, it's defaulted to Pacific time in the US. Now, don't know about you, but I'm definitely not in the US. So we are +10, being Melbourne, Australia. So we scroll down and basically get Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney. Now, you could collect Brisbane and that, but the difference is if you collect on Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney, it will sync and keep track of daylight savings time accurately. Okay, so we change our time zone, and looky there, it's the 14th of July at 13 past the hour. So it's now reflecting our date and time here in Melbourne. Alright, so that's all what we need to, because remember, it automatically synced to the time.windows.com for that external NTP server. And that's all what we need it to do at the moment. Alright, we'll come back and do the NTP server side of things once we set it up as a domain controller. So until then, we'll just leave it as it is. All right, so we need to do the user accounts now. So as I said, just scroll through down here and it'll take you through the step-by-step instructions for the GUI interface. I've only supplied the GUI structures where things can be done via the GUI interface. What's the point of setting up the GUI on the server if we're not going to use the GUI? All right. All these commands can be done via the shell, command shell, and some of the times it would be actually faster to use the shell and do the commands there. But let's just step our way through our tools and go to computer management and then go to our users. So if we come down here, we have our users, and here's our default account. All right, our default administrator account. Now, to change it, you can just rename, and well, so the network admin. All right, there we go. That's as complex as you need to make it for changing the default account. Now, if somebody wants to hack into this machine, they now have to discover that user ID as well as the password that is assigned to that account. All right, so as I said, we should set up our own accounts now. I didn't. All right, so here I said to find the user account network 401. So we'll just come back in here, rename that over to network 401. All right, and then we want to give ourselves a new account with admin rights. So just by right-clicking in this pane and selecting new user, you can come up here and put in, so your username, so whatever you want to make it. All right, but make it something that you would remember when you come back in each time. So I'm going to do right, if I could there. And then put whatever description you want to put in there for the account, that will be there. And then come in and do your usual dotted password. Okay. Now, If you're setting up the account for somebody else, make sure you keep this ticked. User must change password on their next login. So you give them the username and a default password. All right. And when they log in using the credentials you've just given them, they're prompted to change their password so that you no longer know what their password are as the admin. All right. But as this is an account I am setting up for myself, I'm going to just untick that and say create, and then close. And there it is. Now, if you scroll down through the list, you now need to add your privileges to it. Okay. So you need to come in here and assign your groups. Okay, so in here we have groups, and we slide this across. So we've got various groups set up by default. We have administrators, device owners, guests, Hyper-V administrators, what power users. All right, so they all have different properties attached to them. Remote desktop users, replicators, normal user. All right, so if we look at the properties here and a member of, by default, I'm just a member of users. So if you look at our default network administrator, all right, it's the built-in account, which we've renamed, and it's a member of administrators. So what we've got to do for our new account, we want to assign ourselves the administrators there. So go in the properties, member of, add, and what's the name of the group should be added. So make sure you have the name right, and it's for this computer name, add. So we're now a local administrator of this. Rather difficult, wasn't it? Okay, so if you follow through there, that's basically what it is. So go through, changes it, do all that. So it just gives you step by step. Now, the next one, there is changing the server name. Again, not very difficult. So if we close out this panel here, come back into local server, here's our computer name. We can just click on it. Okay. So again, none of this is difficult. You just got to go through and follow the process. So as the idea is that we would be on a shared network within the classroom, we would want to create individual names for our computers, and so that we could potentially do a big lab together in the classroom. So to change our name, I would initially say use your initials and say it's a network 401 underscore server. All right, and this is where we can change it to a domain or leave it in a work group or whatever we need to do. At this stage, we're just changing the name. Alright, so the underscores are non-standard. We can leave it in or I can adjust it. Let's just take it out so that it doesn't freak out. And adjust our little application over here as we go. Need a restart. Restart now. Doesn't take long. And there we have it. Nice to see our current date and time. And just a reminder, the Control-Alt-Delete, just use this button up here, which sends it to it, because if you actually hit Control-Alt-Delete on your keyboard, it will think you want to reset the host machine, not the guest. So send it via using the little menu command and then log in using your new account. So we can change it over. Now, this is the alias I typed in. Bang, there we go. And if we have a look through our local server, our server name is now registered there. Okay, and if you're going, well, what happened with the user account? So if we go back into computer management and look under our local users, okay, this is the full name. So if you don't, that full name is what will display. If you don't want to use that, if you want to just use this, don't leave it blank and it will use this one. All right, it's up to you. Not going to harass anybody for that. All right, so we've changed our user accounts. We've adjusted our time zone, so to Melbourne, Australia. So we've done a few things here. Let's set up a new account. We renamed the old account and we've changed the server name. Now we set the IP address. So again, through here, there's our Ethernet 0. You can just click on it and it takes you through to, I'm hoping, a very familiar dialog that you should be used to seeing. It's like in every Windows machine. So we come down here in the properties, come into our TCP/IP, change it up. It's on DHCP. We want to manually set it. Now, what's my server address? I'll give you a hint. It's on the standard numlock. 192.168.1. Okay, so by default, that's my network here at home. So I can set it up. Now I know where my machines are, so I'll just make that 100. Leave it as a Class C. You can change that, of course. And my default to get it out to the internet is the standard one. Now we can change that to 10s, 12, whatever you want to do, remembering that this is a VM machine, so depending on which interface that VM is on. So if we open up the host ones, all right, we should have various connectors. So we've got VMnet 1, VMnet 8. Now, every time I've rebooted and done different VMs, we've got different taps. I've got VPNs, I've got Kaspersky, secure data, got all sorts of stuff happening. So the virtual machine is going to be running on one of these adapters, and these adapters have their own network attached to them. So if you are creating your home environment, you would set them up with your own network environment using these adapters. Okay, so in here, this is one, and I can say that instead of 168, I can make that 67 so that it is running on this network. Okay, so I can create different virtual machines and things like that that are self-contained within our virtual networks. So keep that in mind. And what's your gateway? 67.1. Preferred DNS. For now, I'm going to say Google, but eventually we'll set up our own DNS server, all right, on that server. So when we do that, we'll come back in and change these settings around a bit. But at the moment, I'll put it as 888, which is our lovely Google, Uncle Google. Okay. So next, after setting our IP address, is configuring updates so that they occur every evening. And again, if you just scroll all the way down, and there's the computer name. I really should put a little table of contents so we can quickly jump to the correct page, shouldn't I? So here, configuring Windows updates. So we want to just run the GP edit MISC. So alright, there's our little I've lost my little see what happens when you wake up way too early in the morning. Your brain dead when you actually get to do this stuff. So there's our run. Opens up our little local group policy editor, and if you look through the instructions here, we'll see that we want to go to an administrative template, and now within there, and Windows components, and then Windows update. So come down to the W's, and then configure. So you basically you open that, and we basically need to look at our configure updates. Here it is there. So there we are. And here we basically choose how we're going to do it in here. So and the maintenance. So first of all, turn it on, and that makes more sense. So auto download and schedule to install. Okay, install during automatic maintenance. Yeah, scheduled install day. Wednesdays at 1800. Alright, so if we look here, configure updates to download and install every Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Now, Microsoft tends to do this major patch release on a Tuesday in the US, so Wednesday here in Australia, and it tends to be the first week of the month, so you can actually just schedule it there. And you can tell it to install updates for other Microsoft products as part of that automatic update to keep everything patched together and makes it nice and neat. Alright, Jacob, I'll catch you later. So, very easy to set up, apply, okay, and that's our server changes. Now, the server firewall rules, again, so server manager, we come up in the tools, Windows Defender, Firewall and Advanced Security. And what we want to change is inbound rule set. So if you scroll down a little bit during the instructions, you'll find it there. And we want to add a new custom rule. So new rule. And we want to make it custom. All buttons. Okay. And the protocol is ICMP version 4. And what protocol number is it? Well, if we don't actually specify the port, alright, so we can just leave it blank and just say it's ICMP, and then we need to specify our source addresses and that we want to occur. So just saying ICMP, because that will allow echo and echo reply and that to occur, and some of the other items there from an address, because we basically want it to be discoverable and we want to confirm that we can get to the server. That's basic troubleshooting 101, is confirming connectivity to a server. So we want to allow the connection, and then what type of network. We want all of them, and then we basically need to name our, alright, so ICMP version 4, and we can put a description in there or not, and say allow ICMP v4, and finish it off. Now we have a rule that allows us to ping the server from another machine. All right, and that's it for this range of activities. So we've changed the initial configuration, we've added our user, changed the default account, we've changed the server name, given it a set IP address, configured updates to download and install every Wednesday evening. We've just changed the firewall rule to allow us to ping, to make sure that we can connect to it. And then, and we've also set our local host. Okay, now it's saying it's got no internet connectivity because I've locked it within the address range that I gave it. I locked it to the actual VMnet 1. So it's locked in the VMware application itself. And it can't get out to the internet because of that, which is fine. If you want to keep it live and able to access the internet, just make it an IP address on your local server, network. Okay, so it'd be very simple and easy to change. So basically change the network connectivity properties, connection properties, and right, it's going to be like that, is it? So instead of being part of the 67 network, you can change it across to the 1. Okay, and if I do that, that will eventually identify that it can access the network and get out again. All right, so that's the end of activity number 2, and that's where I'm going to end this recording. So that's the initial configurations done, and catch you on the next activity.